Hello, and welcome to another episode of Super Pros Bros. I'm Player One Ike, and with me, as always, is
Player 2, Eli, and Robloff. Did you know this podcast is available on YouTube, SoundCloud, and Spotify?
I did not Brotel California. Are those the same places they could
Like,
comment
share?
and subscribe?
It sure is.
My goodness, that's tremendous. They could be one of the boys if they did that per se. You could even make mention.
I want to say that was corny, but it's actually a decent segue.
Goddamn right.
In case it isn't obvious, we're talking about the boys.
Let's ride this segue to victory in The Boys Season 3 review. If you haven't watched the first two seasons, you might want to do that before finishing this episode. If you haven't seen the last season and don't want it spoiled, you might want to go watch the last season.
So you might want to just opt out, go watch it, and come back.
Press pause,
do
come
something.
back, finish later.
If you're listening past this, the spoiler warning has been dropped. It's just on you at this point.
It's all your fault.
Alright. That warning out of the way. How are we feeling about it?
Well, the show isn't, or this season isn't like Butcher's favorite curse word. It is more joyous. The show's not a cunt.
Okay. It's like, where are you going with this?
Oi!
Yeah, we're going to say that word a lot. There's been a lot of profanity because how could we not? We're talking about the boys.
We're talking about the boys. So season 3 came out this, when the hell did season 3 come out? This is now a couple months after it, so you should have watched it if you're a fan. If you're not, you should go be a fan. It's amazing.
I think it came out in the start of June?
That sounds about right. It was a sweet summer experience.
They were started in May and finished in June.
Yeah, because they do the awesome thing of not... I don't know, we're small tangent. Are you a fan of the put it all at once?
No.
Let us...
And
okay.
Yes and no, but largely no. For one big reason is if I binge it and you don't, I can't talk to you about it.
Yep.
It's so much easier to stay on the same page and have the appropriate contextual conversation with another person if it's metered. And it's so easy to stay current because you don't have to devote an entire goddamn day to watch a show.
Yeah.
Like, you can just be like,
you have to plug yourself
Friday
into the
night,
machine,
I'm
sit
having
down
dinner, I'm watching The Boys.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to stay on top of it and not feel like you have to sacrifice something to keep up.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. Also allows you, I think it makes the product better. As much as it is could do it, I think people are not to be trusted when left to their own devices. And it sounds like I'm in favor of big government over here. But very much especially with the way the rest of our media has been coming out, where it's just here it is. I think reducing that and making it so that we can't kind of fall to our lesser selves and kind of just go for it. I think just, helps us enjoy the art better.
Yeah, I think largely I say this as somebody who spent 4 days on a fucking floor watching Fringe with my wife. We just fucking watched it. We just no supervision. We're 19. We just watched the show, the whole show. At one point, Raphael walked in. He's like, "Oh my god, you guys are still watching this." He was kind of concerned for our well-being. It's really not good, and it's just also from a purely fiscal standpoint, it's really bad for you if you're running a subscription model, because the second I'm done watching your show, if that's what's drawing me to your platform, I'm out. Peace. I'll pay you later. So it's also just smart and encourages. It gives a lot more time for there to be hype, because now there's 9 weeks or 8 weeks of postulating, speculating, and whatever the fuck. Versus you get 1 week of hype, and then people are watching it, it's done, and then you have no more, online presence and tons of search engine clickbaity fucking titles and shit.
Yeah. All around, do not only as the boys did writing wise, but also do as they did business wise.
Yeah, it's
Back
just
to the
better
writing.
option.
Yeah.
Our
Back to the writing though. All right, of the good news and the bad news, we're gonna start with the bad news. What's the bad news when it comes to the boys, Broskinkowski?
All right, first thing I gotta fucking hit really hard with the beaten bat. Whoever did the choreography and staged the final fight, like the big climactic fight between Homelander and Maeve and Soldier Boy and
Starlight.
Starlight, kind of Kimiko, and Butcher, fucking terrible. I have nothing positive to say about that fight. I have literally nothing positive to say about that fight. It was garbage. They took away the feeling of speed. They took away the feeling of impact on so much stuff. They took away. It was bad. It looked hokey. It looked stiff for many people. They give Starlight like this 30-second wind-up to blast somebody, and it does fucking nothing. If anything, it looks like it actively hurt her because she collapses to the floor immediately afterward.
Yeah.
Like, who the fuck? Who?
I think that's an interesting idea, but yeah, it's one of those ones that, at least in this circumstance, didn't work out. The idea of like, kind of like a bait and switch. It was like it was so much bait.
If she'd gotten interrupted, like she's just this big windup, and fucking Soldier Boy just leaped across the room and bitch smacked her with his shield, cool. I'm for it. I'm here for it. Like, that would make sense. Just like she's trying to power up, he's like, fuck that shit. Bam. Okay, cool. But that's not what happened.
It is not.
It's not. And it's like, I think they could have done so much more with Maeve. I think they should have made her fight. They could have made her fight with Homelander so much more interesting. They could have,
They could have not had them happen at the same time.
They could have had them be very different and like in separate rooms. They could have had people going through, like, fuck, if you want to make it more dynamic, we're just going to destroy the set and we're going to go through walls. Because you've got people that are crazy strong and just can casually yeet school buses. Fuck it. Have people just go flying through walls and just, like, smash into offices. Like, I get that it costs more, but that show has an immense budget. I'm sure we can chuck $20,000 to set up some dummy rooms that we can destroy. Like,
I mean, you're hitting on one of the things that kind of, in a tangential way, you kind of like drove me crazy about the season, and they did it twice, and it kind of led to these fights in their own way. If I may interject, sorry.
Sure,
just realizing
go for it.
Okay. You seem to be done beating its asshole. So now I want to beat it in the
It's
knees.
pretty exposed, so we'll give it a rest.
I do absolutely agree, though. I think that there was there was like a handful of fight scenes in the season, especially the last one, that it was kind of like very anticlimactic, which I think in the right situation has value. I just don't think this is the right situation. However, you're talking about one of the things they did like twice in the season. They do it in the last fight and they do it in the Herogasm fight, where they go, okay, we have two characters that have beef in both circumstances. We have, in the Herogasm fight, we have, is it Blue Hawk or Blue Hawk?
It's Blue Hawk, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Blue Hawk and A-Train have beef for obvious reasons. And then later, Maeve and Homelander have beef for obvious reasons. And these reasons do go beyond logic, and so I do understand the situation. However, in both situations, the bad guy looks reasonable, which feels weird to my brain hole. To have a guy who's in there, like, A-Train is pissed at Blue Hawk for basically putting his brother in a wheelchair for the rest of his life, killing a couple of, fellow African-American civilians that did nothing wrong and gets away with it. Yep. He is justifiably pissed. That being said, when confronting Blue Hawk sounds like the voice of reason because his response makes complete logical sense. Of just like, A-Train's like, we need to talk about this. And Blue Hawk's like, motherfucker, basically God came back and he's pissed. Can we do this somewhere else
there are
any
bombs
other
going
time?
Off in the room next door. Let's
Can we put like time out? I will literally talk about this at any other time. And he's like, he is completely valid wanting to do that. And Adrian's like, no, fuck you, and just fucking like
Yeah.
fucking what's the term? There's a term for what he does to him.
Sucker
Keel
punches him.
hauls him. Well, no, like keel hauls him basically,
Oh,
and just
not
drags.
not keel hauling.
Okay.
It's like road rash, but not quite. He just
Yeah.
grinds him to a fucking paste. Yeah.
Yeah. Just fucking eviscerates him in a fucking awesome way that the guy deserves.
100%.
100% deserves. It's the windup is just like, why is the good guy being illogical? Like, this is like when we're not going to come back to it, in my opinion. These are both moments that, like, they're not, especially the last one, they are never coming back to this where it's a change in character. It's just the good guy, like, basically looking like the
Losing
bad
their
guy.
shit.
Because
I will say, to kind of give some justification, it's like everything's gone to shit, so fuck being logical. Like, that's my one justification. I agree that it seems weird and kind of out of place and paints them in this bizarre light where it's like, are we the good guy or are we just an asshole right now?
yeah,
But, like,
and I kind of feel like, considering it's fiction,
I mean,
that, like, I don't know.
yes, but also it's like tensions are now super high because bombs, like in the case of A-Train, tensions are super high because we got explosives going off, and God came back from the dead and has judged us unworthy, and has also just murdered a bunch of people. Like, decorum is out the window, so I kind of get it. So I'm not like I don't hate on that as hard as you do. I do think it feels peculiar, and I get the one for Maeve, because she spent so long wanting just an excuse for things to go wrong to fight Homelander, and it's like, it's there. So she sees it, so she takes it. It's like, I get it. She's been wanting this since day one of the show. Like, she's basically had fucking wet dreams of just punching Homelander in the mouth. So, okay. Like, it's awkward.
Yeah.
But it's not unreasonable, I think. It just feels very bizarre.
I think so. Yes, like I understood the justification and the reasoning of both the characters. It was just the timing of it. Like you said, it kind of muddied the last fight too, as opposed to, like, they could have just been all against one and have it shown that he was too awesome, or it could have been like a little bit more of a fight.
Yeah.
Instead, it wasn't. It was like this weird, like, mixtape of mediocrity when it came to, like, the ending fight.
Yeah.
And, like, the earlier fight, it made sense there, but I have no problem with A-Train killing Blue Hawk, even killing him there. It's the wind up to it, where, like, if they had a confrontation and Blue Hawk just went for big air and said "fuck you" and, like, called him a racist slur, and he's like, cool, good enough, and just killed him,
yeah.
I would have been there for it. It's the fact that he literally just made sense, and he's just like, any time, literally, I am not. Reason. Yeah, he's like, the one time he's reasonable is like he gets killed for it. It's like, what the fuck? It's like, just here, Eli, I'm handing you back the beaten back. Get after it.
Okay. This is a really bizarre gripe. I feel like they depowered Kimiko.
Well, literally, yes. But
okay.
also...
but like, there's a bunch of scenes, like in the first 2 seasons, that she's just like fucking no problem, nuts to butts, gore everywhere. Like, and this, it seems like she almost has, I'm not gonna say trouble killing people, but she seems just, like, markedly weaker, and there's the whole scene of her killing people with dildos. I'm like, this is funny, but also, why? And, or, like you could just rip people in half. Like, just tear their head off. Why are we using a piece of rubber? Like, isn't this actively depowering you? Like, like...
Because this is before she literally gets depowered.
Yeah,
right?
like, yeah. No, she's still super strong and can literally put her hand through a guy's chest. Like, using a piece of a piece of big fucking silica just seems dumb.
I thought it was really cool.
It was just,
I think that was one of those ones that was just like, why'd you do this? Because it's fucking cool.
It's goofy. But, like, at one point, there's a guy who, like, stands up to her for a second. And I'm like, not a fucking chance.
Yeah.
Like, there's a couple of moments like that where that happens, and I'm like, no shot. No fucking shot. They need to, like, she's so flippantly, like, at one point in season 2, she flippantly walks in and just kills a bunch of Russian gangsters. Like,
Yeah.
no problem. Like, the fuck that guy's stopping her. Like, that's a weird one. I do really like her story overall, but just that aspect of her felt so peculiar to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, let me hand you back the beaten bat for a second, because there's something else I have to now fucking dig into. Remember what I'm thinking of.
One of the other problems I kind of had with this season, not a big fan of the losing power, gaining power dynamic, but I think they made it really work for Kimiko. I think that was like not bad.
Mm-hmm.
They did a couple little things that I'm kind of like medium on, like that one, the Huey power like gain dynamic thing made sense. I think it was handled a little medium. I don't think it was bad. It's kind of like the way he ending. Also, the ending is like it's one of those things that only works because of the end result. If the end result goes differently, he's an idiot, and we look at him for like a moron. Which is there's the fight with where he has to he instead of using the V and maybe hurting himself, or likely hurting himself greatly, he uses his brain to help Starlight. Doesn't end up working out, much to my co-host's chagrin.
Intense frustration. Yeah.
Yeah. But he uses his brain. And it's cool. However, if she dies, which was not unreasonable, or if she gets hurt or loses her powers, we're going to look at that moment and be like, Huey, what the fuck? Why didn't you go in and do the thing we knew you could do? As opposed to, like, maybe... Because he doesn't even know that definitively works, I think. I don't know if there's, like... I would be interested to go back through and see if there's a scene where she draws power from the light, or, like, in that, like, supercharging way that he knows about, because I'm not sure there is.
I mean, so there's... also, that's stupid.
Okay.
And I'll say...
Tell us how you really feel.
Well, here's the fucking thing. She siphons power from, like, a power grid, right?
Yep.
It's the same fucking building! What, did you turn on the emergency generators next door? Like, what? Like, it's like he pushes up a soundboard and he brightens the lights. That doesn't increase their power source. That doesn't up the amperage of the room.
Yeah.
Like,
the socket still can deliver the same
it's still a
amount of energy
fucking
before.
40-watt socket. Like, Jesus.
I think I understand why they did it, and I understand your annoyance at it. I think it makes sense, so, like, I understand.
It does thematically, and it's got the cool visual spectacle, but if you take 2 seconds and step back, you're like, it's fucking stupid. Like,
I think that's a little hard to judge it on that one, just because, like, that so much of this show is that, but I see your gripe. I think it's valid. That's the other one. There's another one that I had.
If I'll let you keep digging. I remember.
Okay, here I hand back the beating bat. Go
right.
for it while I try to remember what
They
words
do
are.
a very good job with consistency over one character in particular, and that's Soldier Boy. There is so much of this season is hinged around his ability to depower people and the big fucking chest beam that he has.
Sure.
Because it's basically a fucking nuke going off. And so it's this big divine threat of retribution, and effectively the one thing you could point at Homelander and just destroy him. So it has a lot of weight to it. The problem is that it is so inconsistent in its fucking wind-up time. And that drives me nuts. Because they give precedent that he can just use it. When he walks out of the fucking thing, it's like 2 seconds, boom, and he just blasts Kimiko.
Yeah.
And then later, it's like 20 seconds.
Yeah,
it's so long.
He is Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah,
syndrome.
it's like he fucking turns into Goku.
Oh, wait a second.
It's so long, and to make it worse, there's times where he uses it instantly. Like when he hears Russian music, he just annihilates a house. Like he can.
I think it's got a little bit of wind up time there, but it has
it's
considerably
so little.
less. Yeah, it really isn't that much.
Like
so
that, for how important that's supposed to be, the fact that does not have good continuity really irks me. Because like, if they made it just take longer, fine. But they started off by showing it can happen pretty goddamn fast.
Sure.
And that is really important.
Yeah, it kind of feels like a cop out of like, how do we add stuff to the scene? Okay, we just have them wind up. It's like, it does not seem to have a rhyme or a reason, and it makes a big difference in multiple scenes. The fact that they have a wind up, and it's like you're just doing it for fighting's sake, but without plotting it out. I think that is kind of
like, and
I understand why they did it, but I think it's sloppy.
There's a couple there's a couple very easy fixes they could have done if they'd done their fight choreography better. But like they could have had it be so it's something you could interrupt. It's like if it's like the 2-second wind up time and he tries to point it at Homelander and Homelander just like kicks out his leg or something, so he like stumbles and like loses the charge and you see the color dissipate again. Sure.
Yeah.
Like you could do things to make it make sense.
Yep.
They do none of them. Go fuck yourself, audience.
The vitriol.
Yeah, hence rah.
You mind if I go raw for a second?
Take it away. Take this bat.
All right. So I am very much not a fan of gotcha writing. And very much the way I think they made Black Noir's basically whole entire season was for a gotcha moment that, in my opinion, was so telegraphed, you might as well have like fucking put a kick me sign on his back.
Yeah.
Or a kill me sign on his intestine, wherever you wanted to put the post in. On fucking thing. Literally, his whole entire season, he spends MIA once he learns that the big bad is back in town. He's like, fuck this shit, I'm out. Which makes sense. I'm about it.
Also, love him just handing his tracker to some random
in an elevator. Yanking
Great
out
his scene.
Yeah, best scene that he's in by a mile, sadly. Chops out his tracker, hands it to a chick, and just pieces. I'm here for that. Holds up in a fucking rudimentary old Chuck E. Cheese. Fine with that. Start seeing cartoon characters that speak with stutters and look like they're from an after-school Jesus Christ special. You're starting to lose me a lot.
Admittedly, I do find them kind of charming.
I found them charming for the first scene that they're in, and then after hearing him stutter like it was fucking Timmy or fucking whatever from South Park, I was like, really how long are we going to try to mine this quasi-offensive
idea of like helpful schizophrenia? I don't know why. I just found it kind of endearing.
It's funny. The fact that it's only for this episode and it's just like so much of its existence and they have to tell a backstory via it was like...
Sure, it is a bit much.
Grown City. And then for him to come back and just get murked by the guy you were pretty... Like, it was a 50-50 chance was going to do it. See, it was just like, yeah, obviously. Why did we waste what was nearly probably collectively half an hour of runtime for this thing that we knew was going to happen? I'm not saying make it happen right away, but like the buildup was so like... aha, it's like, yeah, we all knew this was going to happen. And one of my gripes with the show could have been saved by them not doing this, which is there needed more time for some of this shit to breathe and matter to me. Like, it was just like, there's some of the stuff that felt a little rushed, felt a little pushed. And it's like, give some of this stuff, you can give extra beats, extra moments, extra lines, better fight, something with all this runtime that like upon rewatch, you're gonna skip. That's the thing that drives me crazy. It's like, slight spoiler, beginning of Suicide Squad, the first team's mission doesn't matter. Upon rewatch, it's not interesting. It sucks. And so if upon rewatch, I'm going to fast forward through the scene or be annoyed at it and have no takeaway, it shouldn't be there in the first place. That's my 2 cents on it.
Sure. I do agree that it was entirely cheapened by just the immediate reprisal of Homelander just gutting him like a fucking fish.
Yep.
If they had given, or if they'd let him live, and like, had Soldier Boy kill him, that would have felt like a way better payoff.
There's ways they could have done something with this.
Yeah.
That I think it would work. Whether it be like he saves Starlight in the last minute. There's stuff.
There's avenues they could have taken.
Yeah, there's stuff that can happen. He could. a line that I would not have liked, but I would have gotten behind, is if he comes back and sides with Soldier Boy because he's like a beaten dog who can't leave his owner. There's situations that they could have taken this place where I'm like, okay, I'm in, or this makes sense. But instead, it's just this setup for a nothing burger that you get slapped with in the face like it's a surprise when you saw it coming.
Yep.
You know, it's like in those shows when a dad will like fake punch a kid, the kid flinches, and then the dad punches him anyway. It's like, cool. I don't like, yeah, you're an asshole. Like, I don't know what.
To see you.
Yeah, it's like we knew this. Like, you're not funny. You're not an edgelord for fake hitting and then hitting somebody. We knew that was coming. It's like that's the kind of writing this felt like to me.
Sure.
All right, I'm done with my turn with the being bat. Go back at the boy pinata for all you want.
I think I'm fairly happy. Like those, I've hit my big gripes with the show. Honestly.
Oh, okay. Well, then allow me to take that bat back then.
Because I know the last gripe. I think the last gripe you really have with the show.
Which do you think that is?
Letting stuff breathe.
No, I mean that's just an overall stand-in.
Okay.
I think that it's always better if I don't think there's a show that's exhausted that. I think it's a fairly kind of constant. I think there's some shows that are more egregious than others. I don't think this one is that bad about it. I just think it would have there's always more value in giving time. One of the things that I had a problem with, and this is I guess like a way of talking about letting it breathe, is with there is, I think it's mostly just one time that it happens, but it really is just kind of like irksome. I believe it's in the same episode or at the tail end of one and then like pretty in the mid of another is Soldier Boy talking about his dad's non-acceptance of him and gets pissed off that he was never good enough for dad. And like he kind of hated his father. Cool. Got it. Dad trauma. I'm in for it. Mm-hmm. And then in either the same episode or the next episode early on, he does the exact same thing his father did, which makes sense. But at the same time, with the timing, it felt hyper hypocritical. And I was watching him episode to episode. I wasn't binging him. So they definitely, it was either very fresh in my mind or it was in the same episode. I really should know this because it is one of my biggest gripes. But I think it's a little too soon, where it's just like, you just talked about how this pissed off you about your old man doing this pissed you off about this. And then you immediately go and do it. It's just like, the character's not a moron. He's an asshole, but he's not a moron. He's very intelligent. And it's like, what the fuck? This doesn't add up. This feels like so hypocritical. It just threw me for a tailspin. I was like, dude, what the fuck are you guys doing? It's like, just doesn't. I feel like it happens one other time in the show, but I can't think of exactly when. It's probably something with Butcher. But extra inning number 1. Another problem I had with the show was the storyline with the group kind of disbanding, especially when it comes to Mother's Milk. The way he just kind of reacted and got like, he kind of became like a cheerleading queen who couldn't have it their way after the whole Russia thing. He just was like, fuck all y'all. It's like, no, you mean fuck Huey and fuck Butcher. Like, I get that, but he's like, no, fuck everybody. And he just doesn't care about Frenchie and Kimiko when it makes no sense for him to not care about them anymore. And that kind of was like, why did you like ditch on them? Yeah. Like at that point, your beef with Frenchie is over.
They're very upset as well.
Yeah, it's like, you guys should be, on team go fuck Huey and Butcher, not on team fuck everybody. Like, that was kind of whack for me. It didn't end up playing out that like that or that long, which I think is makes it like a more of a tepid problem, but it just doesn't add up to me. This is kind of like, dude, what the fuck? Like, this doesn't track. The other one, and this is the reason and the way I'm writing Magician's Academy. This is an overall gripe with the show. Every character that is a superhero has super resilience. They all can take a super punch and be like, yeah, that's fine. It's like, what? Everybody has that power? Like, part of being super is being able to take like a fucking something that would turn your spine into mush as like a
And
bruise,
the
except when it's convenient that you can just die like Noir did. It's like, dude,
the
what? Like some of these punches are breaking trucks, and then
yeah.
like all the supers are
But
resilient to that.
here's the awkward thing is that they're not actually.
I mean,
Well, no. Here's what I mean. This season they do a bad job of it, but in like earlier seasons they do. Like there's the guy who can like read minds via touch. Homelander just kills him by smashing his head into a sink.
sure,
I'm
but he
sorry,
was
not
also
Homelander, Butcher.
Butcher. Yeah, he was halfway to being like an X super, but that's fair. But I think other than him, like
They do kind of hit that sin of like making people for some reason
every super has
durable.
this. Yeah, everybody has super durability. It's like, except when we want to kill them. Like they did a really good job in the first episode of season one with that, where it's like, okay, like because what's the invisible cunt's name? Um,
Translucent.
Translucent. Um, like part of his superpower was that his like body was like that. It was like hard as diamond or whatever like that, and so like they shove like a fucking C4 up his asshole and blow him up. It's like that's really cool. That like takes part of it, and like for a lot of like any hero that has super strength, I kind of buy it. But
Yeah.
there's characters that don't, and it's just like what the like why like it 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 lessens the diversity of the power dynamics when every character has super durability, basically. Save like the odd poor fuck out. But like so many people just have super durability. It's like, Huey's superpower is teleportation and apparently some modicum of strength, but also super durability. Thank goodness for that. Same with Butcher, because
Does
otherwise
Huey
they'd be
ever
dead.
actually get like punched?
I think in the fight with Homelander,
I
he gets like hurled to the wall that would like snap a normal person's spine,
I
but
don't.
since
I
he's
thought he didn't. I know Butcher does.
Butcher definitely does. I'll go back and
I
check that
don't
one
think
out.
Huey does because like Homelander tries to laser him and he just like keeps blinking around.
Yeah, he blinks around, but I think in like a fight or two, he does get kind of like ragdoll hucked, and it's just like,
Hmm.
okay, but like really? But that. But to the boys' credit, that is the case for most superhero shows. That is not
It's
like a them thing. That is a ubiquitous superhero thing.
it.
Is
Yeah.
like because you want to be able to show fights that go on at length, which
But
I
you're
don't
not
think is
just
necessarily
instantly
bad.
pulping your characters.
Yeah, like I understand it for artistic and commercial value. The longer the fight goes, the more fun it is for most viewers. Heads up, if and when Magician's Academy comes out, not even remotely the fucking case. Mostly because mutants aren't fighting other mutants, but also because that's not the way shit works, and at least in the world that I want to create. Anyway, uh, well, now that we're done with the old ugly beaten bat, let's pull out the old care time hug bear. I don't know what the antithesis of ugly beaten bat is.
The glow up stick.
That okay. Here, have the glow up stick while I wash my hands. You have fun with this toy of yours, fucking weirdo. Here's the glow up stick. What did you love about season 3?
Nothing now because you've ruined it.
You ruined the glow up stick.
I was fucking trying to think of an opposite, you jackass. Ay, ay, ay. So, as much as I reamed one fight scene, it feels only fair to laud another. The Herogasm, honestly, everything about that episode is just cash money. Episode is so
The
good.
deep just fucking knocked.
The memes included.
The best part of the episode, the fight scene's great. I agree with you. The best part of the episode is him just like
Deep
full
awkwardly
face
turning
fucking,
around, just
they're
fucking
turning around
octopus
with what you
choke.
knew was an octopus on his fucking. Chin.
You knew it was coming, and it is no less absurd.
Oh, so good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely outstanding. But yeah, the fight scene they do in that is super good. I like the way they start to show a lot of the kind of awkward insecurities and like the feelings of emasculation from Huey, and they just like really fucking hit the gas on those. And a lot of it, especially at that point in the story, so much of the motivation makes sense. And like A-Train gets to have kind of a human moment with Huey, which is great.
Yeah, a very fun follow up.
How did you fucking do that? Like,
yeah, the responses in the episode for so many of the different aspects are just like pure cash money.
Yeah,
They're great.
And the fact that they keep this running joke of like, God, Frenchie's gonna be so sad he missed this, and then like an episode or two later, he's like, I can't believe I fucking missed Herogasm. Like, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, so great.
Yeah. So, absolutely loved it. Episode is the tops for the season for me, for sure.
Yeah.
Your turn.
And, yeah, I everything about that one, they used that was the time where, like, I think having the ramp up to the power made sense, and they kind of fit the rest of the power ramp up for, specifically, Soldier Boy with his, like, power, like, charging.
Yeah.
I think that's the one where it made the most sense. And, like, it kind of fit and kind of, like, amped up the tension. I think they wrote the other interactions after. Or, that one, like, stuck the way it was. Talk about your earlier issue.
That one felt good. It also didn't feel like it took forever. It was like, grab him, hold him. He starts to charge, and Homelander's like, fuck, and just runs. Like,
yeah.
And it's... Yeah, that one didn't feel cheap, and it didn't feel, like, drawn out and slow-motioned and shit. It didn't feel like we'd fucking lapsed into some Dragon Ball Z garbage. Like,
True.
It felt good. And I think one of the best things about that episode is, like, especially as a viewer, when that finished, for the first time I'm excited. I'm like, he can be hurt. Like, you can actually beat this fuckhead. Awesome. Like, because you spend so much of the rest of the show, there's this mystique that just like, Homelander, you just don't beat. He's just a trump card. He just wins. It's like, for the first time, you get this awesome hit, because you spend the whole show hating him, with good reason.
Yep.
You're meant to hate him, and they do the job perfectly. And so you're just like, he can fucking die. We can see it. There's the pieces on the table. Kill him. Like, it's such a cool sense, and they've spent fucking 20 episodes to this point building for it, or 22 episodes to this point building for it, and you finally get that glimmer of, like, optimism. Like, oh, we can kill it.
Stepping up next to the plate with a glow-up stick, player 1, Ike. So, I don't
either.
This isn't a 1920s fucking Knickerbocker
fucking,
commercial.
like, almost hit transatlantic levels of accent.
What can I say? I just love doing this podcast.
Oh, boy. Get me out.
Take you out to the ball game. Okay. So for the good moment for me, I think one of the things they did an amazing job with is it was very small and wasn't in that many scenes, but it makes a big difference, is the subtle impact adults have on children. There's 2 kids that are really showcased in this season. It's MM's daughter, and it's Homelander's son.
Yep.
They both have scenes where they see their dads freak out, and they see stuff after and or before. Like, they see them at differing moments. And the way it changes them with the interactions. Like, Butcher has a very tough time. He's having a fucking rough go of it, and from multiple different angles. Doesn't excuse it, but it does make sense of his actions. And he takes it out on his son in one scene, one time. He's doing all this for his son, and he has one bad moment. But he leaves that for his son to just kind of gestate on. The last thing is like, fuck you. And he's angry. Understandably angry, but he's angry, and he takes it out on his son, which is not okay. But he leaves his son feeling that way and doesn't come back. And then Homelander swoops in and says what he needs to hear, and what everybody needs to hear, especially from a father figure, is, you're not weird, you're not bad, it's okay, I love you. And sadly for the kid, it comes from a very bad source.
Yep.
That I think has his best intentions at mind, which is something that's important to point out, or what he thinks his best intentions are. but is ultimately a negative influence.
Yep.
And then you see it in like the so he says that changes, which effectively changes his team, and then at the end, it's very subtle. Again, they did this very well. They play it very subtle, where the kid at the rally, you know, flings a can at him. Homelander finally gets up and does like the fucking full on Trumpian. You know, I could walk into Times Square and shoot somebody and probably get away with it. Homelander like legitimately does that. You know, just kills a guy and everybody, you know,
Just fucking
cheers.
cheer for him, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like you see that interaction with Homelander, which is really cool because they're both basically children. Like Homelander's just a grown-up child, but you see the two like reactions from this feedback and how it affects them. Of Homelander going, "Oh, I can do this," which is awesomely terrifying for season 4. And then not only that, but you see the ramifications for what's the kid's name?
Ryan.
Ryan. Nailed it. Uh, and you see Ryan's reaction, albeit subtly, of being like, "Oh, this is okay."
I'm 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 hoping, praying to God,
That it's like bemused horror.
yeah, that it's like a nervous smile, like, oh God,
What have I
haha.
got myself into? Yeah,
Yeah, like,
it could be. I think the fact that they don't fully expound on, you know, they show it very subtly, and it's the closing shot.
yep,
I think allows for that potentially to be that, which I think is very smart writing.
yep.
You know, you get to one, you get to leave it in our heads. It could be
Good,
either,
good,
but
good
also,
cliffhanger, good
yeah,
source of
great,
discussion. Case in point.
exactly.
Um,
But having those things and showing the impact not only on the kids, because one of the other interesting people to show the impact on is MM's ex-wife's new husband, and showing the way he reacts to like the Homelander stuff, I think is one of the kind of fun little playful background things that they do that really does great world building and is like good for the show overall,
I
and shows like the ramifications of media, politics, and stardom upon the level
average Joes.
plebs. Yeah, average shows, and like what it does, because it does make a difference,
Yeah.
which I think is like a great message to be putting out there, because so much of like, oh, you just, you know, whatever, like they take away from them what they want. It's like, this does matter. Like big things that happen in the media do affect people, whether you want to admit it or not. You know, that is just a truism at this point. Is that like, yes, people should think for themselves, but also, you know, most people aren't at 100%, you know, kind of debate level analysis of looking at stuff that they're ingesting, and it's subconsciously doing things. And so allowing, you know, people, I mean, first off, let's get this out of the way before I continue. Season 3 Homelander is Trump. That's who he is. He is just Trump. Like there's so much of the stuff that they made that is so Trumpian that there's no fucking way, in my
No,
opinion.
they've
There's
openly
no
said it. They even said that they've been less less subtle about the metaphor because they're just more and more angry at shit about Trump.
Yep.
Yep.
And I think it's completely valid. And, you know, he was just such a fixture of our life for the better part of like 5 or 6 years as Americans. And just like,
Still kind of is.
still kind of is.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. But, you know, he's just Trump. And so to show that, like, in a fictional way, to show the effects that he has, I think is great. Because I think there's some people in the middle who this will help them see. For the people on the left, they get, you know, the kind of high five, you were right sort of thing. I don't, there's a better way to, do you have a $5 word for what I'm trying to say? Like,
I'm not exactly sure what you're trying to say, so no.
just that kind of confirmation of like, yeah, this is who that bag of shit was, you know, just that like, almost like fan service of a sort for the left, I guess is probably a better way to kind of put a bow on that. Rambling. And potentially for people on the right who are seeing this to see the message and draw their own through line if they don't see this as being Trump.
Most people got angry. There's a bunch of people that got very angry when they kind of put two and two together. Kind of funny enough.
I think that's very true for the people that are very outspoken. There are people that are way far to the right that are, you know, they wear MAGA hats in public. They post about that shit aggressively. Yeah, that's not for them. This is for the people that are on like the far left end of the right that were kind of, you know, they voted for Trump because fuck Hillary or whatever. and it's slowly putting them to the middle where they can think more for themselves. I think this kind of critical theory and putting out in a fictional way is one of the best ways to, I think, potentially change people's minds and like one of the reasons art has value, especially critical art or art that is like, trying to teach you something or showcase something, is that it can do this without saying it. Because if you come forward and say Trump bad, people are going to go, that were like mildly voted for him, going to go fuck you, because you have to defend your position as human beings. It's so hard to not. But when you can do it in a metaphorical way and, juice it up a little bit, I hope anyway, that people are able to see the idea and extrapolate and then see the reality that it represents. Anyway, either way, glow up moment. Here's the glow up stick. What do you got next for the sweet?
Actually, kind of related. I like how they ended. I really like the appropriate cliffhangers and the setup they get into setting up the next season. It did not feel cheapened. Like,
no,
none of the plot points that they left dangling and the threads they left kind of untied felt rushed or felt super out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So I really liked where they leave you as an audience, because like they're very good. It's like, this is what's happening for season 4. Get your asses ready. And I like the kind of tone they leave off, especially with like the last line being from Butcher, like, well, that cunt's got to go. Like,
yeah.
It felt very kind of true to the show, and it had a lot of very good moving parts that you could understand, how you got there, like, and it's the two kind of unresolved villains are now again really in the focus. So I think it's really good.
It definitely gets me excited for the next season as well.
Yeah.
I guess one of the glow up moments that is like slowly coming together is it's mildly shippable, but it's the relationship between Kimiko and Frenchie, and just the way they've decided to show it blossoming, of where, you kind of got the vibe, at least in the end of season 1, beginning of season 2, that he was getting friend zoned. Not in like a negative way, not like he was looking for something, but like that's where they were going to be. I think that's the beauty of it, is both of them, like, he cared for her because he saw what we found out later was something that he'd lost, I think, in his friend that OD'd.
Yeah.
That's the kind of vibe I got, is that it was like a second chance at saving somebody that needed it. And like, cause he's a loving guy that cares. It's the beauty of it. He's a hurt dog who wants to love, but, has been taught to only bite. And so to deal with that, he's done copious amounts of drugs.
Yeah.
And to see him get to be himself, and like, I think he is his truest self when he's with Kimiko, and like, caring for her, taking care of her, and at the same time treating her like a human, which is what she is like needed.
Yeah.
And
they do a very good job making him seem very alive in like the scenes where he's cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah. He seems like very excited to be cooking. just the basic act of making fucking bread and shit. He's just super pumped for it.
Which then makes sense because he's a chemist, and chemistry and cooking are two sides of the same coin.
Like, it's just kind of interesting that, like, I remember in season 1 where he's like making some of the chemicals, like, no, you gotta fold it, take the bubbles, make it spongy, like,
yeah. But I think going from that relationship of friendship to a romantic relationship and showing it's one of those things that it just doesn't get shown off enough. So much of the time, relationships are binary. They either start off loving, or they start off this, or they do the friendship, the way they show friendship changing is always kind of weird, or can be kind of like strange.
This does feel very earned. And
yeah, it feels earned, but in a very sincere way where it just kind of happened.
Yeah.
Frenchie always cared for her, and when she's like, I really like you, and he was like, I do too. And it wasn't something that he was thinking about. He was like, you're my friend. I care for you. I want like good things to happen for you. And was always looking out for her.
Yeah.
And, it just kind of happened.
They
It wasn't, something that it was driving toward. There was a small amount of will they, won't they, because you just like the characters, or at least that was for
Yeah.
me. There wasn't any like, oh, I see this happening. Like there was no like ramping up to. They left themselves very open ended and showing a beautiful platonic relationship
Yep.
that could or couldn't be this way, and they like let it be this way.
Yep.
Which I think was sweet. What about you? What else do you think is sweet about this season?
I really liked there's a couple of very specific scenes that I really, really, really liked. I really liked the nightmare scene that they put Butcher through.
Oh yeah,
It's so fucked.
in the best kind of way.
The best kind of way. Or worst, both. But I really liked, and like one of the clear through lines, and metaphors that they put in, that they basically just hit you with a fucking textbook. So subtlety was not their strong suit this season by design, but sure, fair enough.
Yeah.
And it's like everyone becomes their parents, unless you can take the step back and realize it. That's the only way you don't.
Yeah.
It's like a moment of objectivity, not giving in to basal emotions. And it was really interesting to see just like what made Butcher Butcher.
Mm.
And it's like you see it and you're like, nah, I get it. Like, it's ugly, but I get it. I hate it, but I get it. Like there's a lot of that, and so much of him just like looking at his past and just yelling at himself like, "Don't fucking leave, you idiot! He's not gonna make it."
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I thought that was really, really good, and I thought that kind of they're on a similar through line of like agency. I liked what they do with Kimiko, where she's like, "I want my fucking powers back."
Mm. I think the fact I don't like taking away, and I don't like things going away and coming back.
I do kind of
for no
hate the
reason.
ramification that imposes. That it's like, actually, Soldier Boy's thing is effectively impermanent if you could just give somebody more blue goo that they have already proved they can mass produce. I do kind of hate that. However,
I think the fact that I think the one reason that I think I'm also on board with this is the fact that she didn't have agency in getting her powers in the first place.
exactly. Like that's my exact point. She didn't choose it. It got forced on her. So she just had to live with, this is who you are now versus this is who I get to be now. And it's like, even though it doesn't change anything, it's the context is so king for so many things, and so it's so king for this kind of like, for anything traumatic, or because it's like
it's a good metaphor also for like life decisions.
Yeah.
There's so many people I've talked to over the years that they're good musicians, and they started off and their parents forced it on them,
and they
stopped for a while.
They don't know if they'd like it if they hadn't been forced.
Well, they quit, and then they decided, you know what, I did actually like this, and they come back to it, and the difference between the first time and the second time is so drastic, because when they got to come back and choose and be like, I fucking love this, and I want to do this, as opposed to, this is what I do because I'm good at it because my parents ruined my childhood.
Yeah,
it's like, it makes choosing something versus something being forced on you, even if you end up liking it the same or good at it or whatever, makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And so like showcasing that in the story, that works, and like shows the growth in the character is just genius.
And to put on my psych hat for 2 seconds, context is king in determining things like PTSD. Because what could be incredibly traumatic under some circumstances is normal on others. Like,
I mean, it's just like, if you look at, the easiest way to look at this is like what triggers people, right?
Well, it's not just so much that, like, it's so much context for the event that happened. Like, the easy example is a fight. Like, if you get jumped in a back alley and get the piss beat out of you, you're gonna have nightmares. Like,
sure,
you're like, versus, for me, like my black belt test, I couldn't fucking get up the next day. I got the fuck beat out of me. I got my jaw dislocated. Do I have nightmares about it? No. I walked in. I knew what I was getting into. I opted in for it.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
and I had the opportunity to quit if I wanted, and I said, nah, I'm here for it. Let's go. I don't regret that choice. It was stupid. But it hurts. But,
Yeah.
the guy in the back alley did not get a choice. He did not
Yeah.
get a say. He just got the piss beat out of him. So for Kimiko, it's like she didn't choose her powers, and they just became emblematic and this vitriolic poison from her past. She had no say. They just took her, they made her a soldier, and they made her even more dangerous. It was just this perfect capstone for a nightmare childhood.
Yeah.
Versus, I get to choose it as an adult, and I get to repurpose what they gave me. I get to use it because I'm choosing to use it. And that's like one of the big things for recovering for people with PTSD is like adjusting that message of trauma in many ways, and making use of what tools you get from having to kind of go in survival mode for however long.
That's fascinating. I never thought of it like that. That's really cool. Well, I think I only have one more light up moment that comes to the top of my head. Like the show,
Sure.
the season's great.
Other than
but...
just, it's got the general hallmarks you appreciate from the Boyz. It's got wonky, ribald shit that you expect. You see a man explode from the inside of his penis. It's gross.
That was something else.
Oh, it still hurts.
I really liked. It was small compared because he was in all of last season, and he does amazing work every time. I'm talking about Giancarlo Esposito, aka Gus Fring Forever.
God, that man scares me.
Oh, he's
every
amazing.
time he's not being recorded, though, nicest dude ever. Like,
the sweetest.
It threw me off the first time I saw him not in a show. I'm like, what the fuck is that?
Who is this nice man that I would like to take out and buy lunch to?
I think he's gonna stab me. I can't trust him.
Yeah, but I mean,
does he have a box cutter?
Yeah, as long as he doesn't. But when he's playing Stan, like, I hope he comes back for the next season. It wouldn't make that much sense, but I love him as Stan Edgar.
So good.
Especially this season, he gets to have one of my favorite moments, and one of the things that really typified how they know. Like, with Soldier Boy, I think they were kind of playing around a little bit. I think he was a bit of a stand-in for a couple of ideas and metaphors of, like, toxic masculinity of back in the day.
Sure.
And I think that works.
Yep.
But Stan Edgar was so perfect in this season because of the way he interacted. Like, the one amazing scene he had with Homelander after he's been, Homelander's in quotes won.
He's ousted him. Yeah.
He's ousted him. He's got the thing under his control. That scene is just like
your blood pressure is still 90/60. Like you're at home reading a John fucking Grisham novel.
Yeah, just like doesn't in any way put out that he just lost his company, his job, and his empire. He's just like. And he's in a room with somebody he knows that could probably... We're assuming that could kill him. Maybe Staninger's got powers. Probably not. Maybe so. Again, this is one of those great things that they've left it... they haven't painted all the lines.
99.999%. Stan Edgar is just a regular-ass human.
It's very likely. But also, if they showed him having powers, would you be surprised?
A little bit, but I wouldn't be like...
You wouldn't
angry.
Be flabbergasted.
I wouldn't be like upset or feel cheated. I'd be like, oh, what the fuck? Cool.
Oh shit, he's got powers too.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, that scene where he gives the awesome monologue of just like, it's like, where would I give, if I gave you a compliment, where would it go? It's just like
yeah,
just like fucking dicking, like he's lost, but he's just dicking on him all the way out the door.
Yeah, he could barely get out the door with his fucking balls of his.
Yeah, it's just like so massive.
Yeah, every time he interacts with Homelander, basically, he's just like, I am more sure of myself than you'll ever be, and I don't care that you can kill me. Because if you have to do that, you lose, and you'll know it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's like, I have all the power.
Yeah,
I
have all the power because I don't care what you think of me, you man-child.
Yeah, you might be Superman, but I am Superman.
Yeah, that comma's important.
Yeah.
Yeah, fucking Giancarlo Esposito is just God, he's just so good to watch on
Just
camera.
tits. Just the best.
Yeah, just God, he's one of those actors that just does that imposing, intimidating voice that just scares you a little bit.
I think it's also his eyes. The way he like
and
looks
his,
at
and his
shit is
mannerism
just like,
too. Like he's
yeah.
just so perfectly composed.
His smile is villainous yet sincere.
Yeah.
His stare is harrowing. Like his voice is just like
It's so
a katana
level.
through chocolate. It's like terrifying and just sweet.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, he's such an awesome presence that he just fucking carried. I think he was in Far Cry 6 because that game's not good, but you played because Giancarlo Esposito is the fucking villain, and you're like, yeah, I could see him as a fucking corrupt dictator. I'm in. Like,
anything else you got to close out the glow up moments?
no, I think we've hit most of the good highlights, and again, if you like the boys, you're gonna watch it. No shit. I think overall, if I had to like give the season a something out of 10, I'd give it like a good 8.5, 8.75. Like it's good.
How about I give it an 8 out of 10. It's strong. It's got some things that I think could be like cleaned up.
I think you'd give it a higher rating if it wasn't the boys. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like if you didn't have,
I think
if you didn't
so
have
much
expectation.
Season 1 was like unbelievably great. Season 2 continued the goodness. I think you're absolutely right that like considering the preamble, it's like a little bit lower. Any other show season 1 of this equity, you'd be like 10 out of 10.
Yep.
But considering we've seen where it came from, it's not like a huge drop off where it's concerning. It's just kind of like
disappointed, but it's not the best.
Yeah, exactly. It's like having a straight A student come home with a B plus. You're like, really? You really? I thought better of you. It's not bad. Like your grade point average is still the best in the class.
White parent.
Yeah. I'm not gonna bite and go for the racial meme there. You can't trick me that easily. Nice try though.
Oh God.
And while my co-host collects his breath, we're gonna go to break.
Have you ever wondered, man, how bad can things really get in society and still be kind of functional? Have you ever looked at the news or at headlines in the paper and wondered, how bad can we really push things? If you've been there on your bad days, maybe you can indulge that little itch with something more dystopian. Instead of just hearing about crazy economic inequality and man-made natural disasters in the news outlets, you can have it in your multimedia as well. And you could do your best to pretend it totally isn't something you can see coming to fruition in, I don't know, a decade or two. You could pretend that canyon of a wealth gap and the rapid inflation and overwhelming climate change and chemical spills. But it's gonna be fine. It'll be fine because, we're better than that. We could fix it. We're not doomed to prophesy our own inevitability and collapse. Oh God.
Welcome back, children.
Oh boy, got fucking Krusty the Clown over here. Jesus.
No, that's not. He's got like a little bit of edge to his voice, right?
Yeah, it's hard. Krusty the Clown is a very hard voice to do perfect.
I mean, his name is Krusty, so it'd be weird if he was soft to do.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna just talk so you can't. All
Because
right.
that stopped me before.
I'm gonna try. So, pitch-wise, I'm gonna talk about a character I'm kind of excited I've been playing with, and I'm going with the name Amass. This would be more.
Jesus, is he that fat?
Yeah,
There's Krusty.
I gotta stop. So it would be in my sequel to my web serial, which is based around superpowers and aliens making the world way, way worse. And the idea that Amass is very different and very new because he's a power vampire. And initially, I think I don't want him to be doing anything stupendous. He's kind of that looming threat where it's like, if he gets something big, how scary can he become? And when you run into him, what is he actually able to do this time? And he provides a lot of potential. Because it's like, if you give him something huge that he can then complement with something else, oh, he's suddenly God. And so the idea that I have is basically he would be hunting for Eldritch. Because Eldritch, left unchecked, is the most powerful person I've left alive. There is one person who could just snap her fingers and erase him from reality, but she doesn't have powers anymore. Infinite is no more. So, well, voluntarily. And because the people that made the Adapted went, yeah, you're too strong to be left alive. You can terraform a planet. You need to go. So, Eldritch, being able to turn into a building-sized mass of carnivorous tentacles, is the most powerful thing in existence. So if Amass can get his hands on that, and then complement it with like, hey, I've got super speed as well. Now I'm a building-sized thing running at 70 miles an hour.
Try and keep up.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck running from me, because I can eat you too, and then add you to the pile.
Roar. Nom nom.
Yeah, exactly. So, I love the kind of potential threat that he represents. And
it did you see the show Heroes?
No, I've never watched yours.
Okay. There's a character in the show that has like a very similar power dynamic.
It's not like an uncommon kind of idea. Like there's in Worm, there's a character who does something very similar, where she basically harvests like the ghosts of dead capes, and she can reuse them later. And they basically each have like their own kind of cooldown. And so eventually she just becomes the strongest person in the world because she just has enough like tools at her disposal. And the guy who is walking around and who is regarded as the strongest dude alive finally realizes he's like, I can no longer match her. And it like scares the shit out of him because he's like, I'm supposed to be because he's made he's made to be the strongest man alive. Like Trinity is supposed to be just the fucking king shit of everything. And he just realizes he's like, I can't match you anymore. And she's like, that's okay. I still like you. And he's like, good.
Thank God.
Because she's like weirdly unstable. So it's not a new kind of concept, but I like the idea of starting him out early and introducing it early, and he's kind of a B-lister. But like, and I think at one point I want to give him an A-lister. Like, he just happens to be in the right spot at the right time and just grabs an A-list power and be like, later bitches. And so suddenly they're like, oh, we need to deal with him today. Because otherwise he's getting off the fucking rails.
So he can only grab powers from other soups, from other...
Yep. Other soups.
Okay. That's interesting. Sounds really cool. Do you see it as like temporary or do you see it as like permanent? Like,
permanent.
Is he like rogue?
No. He's not rogue. Okay. Once he steals them, they're his. He gets to keep them.
Okay.
Because he has to steal.
And the other person loses them.
I don't know if I want to make it that he can like siphon powers off people or if they have to be dead.
Okay, interesting.
And if like he's like a window when they die to like claim it off their corpse. Because I mean, otherwise he just goes and finds a graveyard, right?
Yeah.
So
goes nuts.
Yeah, he just goes ghost hunting. So I'm not exactly sure how I make him work. I'm still working nuts and bolts in particulars, but I do like the idea of that kind of looming threat where it's like if he gets going, suddenly everyone has to drop everything and stop him, or he'll kill everyone.
Do you? Is he starting off good, turning bad? Has starting off always been bad?
I think my initial motivation for him is selfish. Like, I think my initial spot is I want him to just want to get Eldritch. Because it would synergize with his own power of consumption so perfectly, and just doesn't help that he's arguably the strongest thing still alive. Outside of maybe Titan.
Okay, so is there not like a good and bad side? Is it mostly just like factions in this
In this, there's currently there's three setups. He kind of exists outside of any of them. So there's like sane superheroes, effectively, who like are trying to keep cities running and not crime riddled.
Sure.
There is, I guess technically four. There is a character named Ambition who is trying to weaponize superpowers, and she wants to bring back some of the dead ones, despite risking pissing off the people who made the adaptations in the first place. And she thinks it's a worthwhile gamble to do because she wants to be the new Trillidan. Like, she wants to run the fucking cosmos. She's like, we have the tools, let's do it. And so she wants to recreate Infinite and make it herself. And the last group is Wildlings, or big group is like Wildlings, and they're basically anarchists who see the kind of new order and effectively this kind of surge of industrialism and almost corporate control is suppressive and subversive, and so they're basically terrorists that operate in cells. And they see it as that many of them have like adaptations and powers because they don't think that corporate tycoons should be running shit the way they do. And they're like, well, we have the tools to interrupt it. And so Amass kind of exists outside of that because people don't want basically a power vulture around them.
Turns out.
Yeah. So he's kind of his own self-serving entity.
That's really cool. Yeah, adds another fun angle to that. That's really fun. It also makes sense why then, like, becomes outside the sphere becomes his own kind of cornerstone problem, it sounds like.
Yeah, because he represents a ceiling that nobody can match because he can just keep building it.
Also, since doesn't have friends, is fine attacking everybody, so potentially like
no one is safe.
Yeah, well, not only no one is safe, but collection point for everybody to want to fight him.
Yep.
Kind of a little bit similar to the dynamic that villain in season 2 of My Hero Academia.
Stain.
Like, Stain doesn't really like anybody, and nobody really likes Stain, and so like stopping him kind of becomes everybody's problem.
Yeah.
Doesn't bring anybody together, but like, it
we
makes
could put our shit on hold
funnel.
For a moment while we deal with this
yes,
asshole.
Or yes and no. Like, it gives you the opportunity for both, which I think is like really good for your story.
Probably the easiest parallel I can think of is in Worm. There's this kind of phenomenon that happens called the Endbringers, where they're basically like Godzilla comes and attacks a city. And so when they roll up, and they like basically someone maths out when the next one's going to show up, and they put it through this big statistical model of where it's going to be. And when it happens, everybody shows up. They stop fighting, and there's like this recognition and truth that it's like, while this is happening, we're cool. We can fight over the city as soon as we make sure there's going to be a city.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like one of them drowned. Like they made an interesting nod to the tsunami that hit Japan, and like they said, so one of them controls water, and so it just fucking hit an island with a tidal wave and just wiped it out. Like there isn't a city there anymore.
Damn.
Yeah, so I think Amass may well turn into one of those for me, where it's just everyone has to go. Don't care. He needs to go. He'll ruin everything for everybody. Like, my plans can't exist with him ruining it.
I'll have to wrap my head around that. That's really cool. Well, this week... Were you going to try and say something?
I was going to say, what about you? What you got going on?
So, recently, while working, I kind of had this minor writing epiphany. Would have been... a year and 8 months ago or something like that.
Okay.
Something like that. I don't know. End of 2020, I graduated California State University of Monterey Bay. Woo! I graduated in film, and my final project was a pilot for a TV show that was based around some of my experiences as a dealer. And I wrote it in a way that was fun, but I think not a cop out, but the story followed a character and they very much broke the fourth wall and talked to the camera to explain things, which is the only way I could figure out at the time how to write a story about dealing, because so much of dealing is foreign to people.
Yeah.
There's not that many people that gamble. There's not that many people that gamble at a level where they're going to understand the subject matter and the experiences felt by the protagonist.
For sure.
And for whatever reason, it took me this long to kind of look at it and go, you know what? Probably my professor, but maybe somebody else in the class was like, what if instead of talking to the camera, they were talking to like a new hire or something like that? And for whatever reason, it just finally took this long for that, notion to click in me to think about it. And I think that's the way I'm going to redo my thesis project, which was Toked, Not Stoked was the name of the pilot. But looking at, so the story would, in this case, follow new hire comes on and has to shadow, kind of old, over the hill, over it dealer.
Mm-hmm.
And that way you have the kind of fish out of water scenario that the audience can latch onto. The information that we presented is organic instead of breaking the fourth wall and kind of taking you away from the story. It would, be explaining to the audience via like the main character or one of the main characters how games work, circumstances, what to do and what not to do. And you would get to have that experience of figuring out for the first time as a dealer how this works and like the ramifications of what that is from an organic perspective.
Gotcha.
Which one of the reasons I want to do it is because this is, experience I've had. A lot of people, everybody, anytime this comes up, anytime anybody finds out I'm a dealer, they're just like, whoa. And I'm just like, I don't find it that interesting. Yeah. But part of the reason I don't find it that interesting is because I've been doing it for 15 years. And I'm fucking over it. But every time I tell a story coming from that world, if they understand the circumstance, they find it flabbergasting and amazing. So maybe there's something to be mined there. So I'm going to take a second crack at the story with that, kind of retooling. I think I don't know if I want to have it in episode 1 or one of the other episodes, but the guy that he's shadowing, there's a kind of a bait and switch that I have in mind where the character who is being shadowed is not the narrator, but, the new hire's introduction to this world, basically. And initially you're led to believe that he is good, that he is, somebody worth listening to, a trustworthy narrator of sorts, a very safe guide. But then relatively early on in the show, you find out that he's stealing from the casino, that he's fucking over it. He doesn't do anything like malicious other than, stealing from his boss. But it has reasons, but it's a kind of bait and switch because a couple of other people that you're introduced to, you would think are more likely to be the thief, the untrustworthy words in the ear, when they kind of end up being actually helpful. And so one of the kind of guiding principles and through lines throughout the series would be that even the scuzziest and less desirable sources of information do either occasionally have nuggets or are not actually as misleading as you were initially led to believe, at least in this, world and paradigm. And if I may use this moment as a segue, one of the reasons I kind of thought of this and, I'm reapproaching the script is because I just finished Hulu /FX's The Bear. The Bear is 8 episodes, 20-something minutes a piece. I think the last episode is actually 40. Starring the guy that plays Lip from the American remake of Shameless. I can't remember his name. Sorry to that actor. The show is amazing for a bunch of different reasons. One, the way it's shot is gorgeous, especially for a American TV show, but also one that was on FX. That the episodes are 20 minutes apiece. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Atlanta and the the kind of visual storytelling and the lens and the approach of viewership, where it wasn't, either sitcom ultra wides where, you have like 2 to 3 cameras going and then catch the scene, okay, we're done, but not also like there was some quick cutting, but it very much services the style. There's a lot of good like long takes. There's a lot of great shots of food. Heads up, if you watch the show,
Your mouth
make sure you
will
have
water.
something to eat. Make sure that you either just ate and are full, or about to eat, or are eating. Don't like, oh, I'm on a new diet and I haven't had food yet. I'll just watch this show. No, you won't. You'll watch that show and order 5 burgers. Like, you're just gonna end up like, breaking your commitment to God, loved ones, or whoever else, because that show, whoo boy, it is amazingly good. I would say this is one of those things I don't like to say, but the first episode is good. To put it in cooking terms, it's pretty medium. The rest of the show is very rare. Very much, I think the first show is probably going to get you in the door. If you're vehemently against it, you don't need to watch the rest. I think if you're kind of on the fence, watch episode 2. Not that it's so much better, but it really starts to find its rhythm. And I think the first and last episode are, it's kind of like we were talking about with the Boyz. Any other show would be a home run. I think when surrounded by the rest of the show, it's a B+. And so it's kind of like, oh, it's still very good. It's just that the rest of the show is amazing, that they kind of look, meh. It's good. It's not great, but the rest of the show is great. So I would very much recommend watching the first 2 episodes. It's going to take you all of 40 minutes. And you really start to get the vibe of it, the feel of it, and it's just so damn good. All the characters that have any amount of lines are dynamic. They show change, they grow, and they've got a lot of room to grow, which I think is very good. The show does an amazing job of showcasing lovable, believable characters that are extraordinarily human. All of the characters have problems. All of the characters have something that they need to work on. And they do to degrees, because this isn't a show that ends at like one. They already got slotted for a second season. But it's very much about how humans suck. There is so much of this show that is talking, just kind of showcasing that humans are imperfect in many different ways. In a very beautiful way. Not in one that's punitive, not in one that is necessarily saying it's okay, but that we have room to grow. We shouldn't be afraid to. It's just a masterpiece. It's a very good 20-minute masterpiece. I would highly recommend it. What about you, bro? What you got to wreck this week?
I got something a bit darker. So watched a German kind of psychological thriller called Goodnight Mommy. Now, the name like that, it's uncomfortable. Yeah, it follows like a pair of boys and their mother who had some kind of facial reconstructive surgery, and they believe that she is not their mom anymore.
Yeah, boy.
It goes places. I do not want to say anything and take away from that initial, because it does such a good job where you start so convinced, so fucking convinced, and then you start to doubt halfway through. You're like, I don't know who I should believe right now. It's getting fucked. And it has such a good twist at the end. You're like, oh, shit. And I made a point to go, and it's not one that seems so obtuse that you couldn't have seen it coming. But if you go back, the details are there, and they're so well done, and it's so perfectly subtle. It toes that line. It is admittedly a little slow to get going, but payoff is completely worth it. It's really
awesome. That's fucking cool. I love it when shows find a way to do what you're talking about, where upon first watch, if I'm understanding you correctly, upon first watch, they're there. Mm-hmm. They mean something or not that much, but like they're kind of
innocuous details. You don't think about
they're innocuous details that like flush out the world. They kind of track and they don't draw attention to themselves, but they're
Nope.
there.
Yep.
And then upon second viewing, they like blow your socks
Yeah,
off.
on second view, like with context, with appreciation for what actually is happening, you're like, oh, this is very different now. Yeah, it's really well done.
It's fucking cool.
Yeah.
It's there's something I watched recently. So there's a YouTube channel called like Alan Tsai, I think it is, and he does a lot of like tidbits, some of which about story, some of which about like behind the scenes stuff when it comes to movies. And he had one recently that was like, oh, in Django Unchained. I'll try to do my best to link this video. Highly recommend checking out his channel. It's a lot of fun if you like random movie history or random movie tidbits. But in Django Unchained, he in the house fight scene, Django shoots somebody, gets blood on his face, misses the next shot, ends up losing that fight. I didn't watch through, and Alan Tsai didn't say anything about whether it was or wasn't because of that, but he misses killing a guy and ends up losing that fight. Later, when he kills somebody at point blank range, it's Quentin Tarantino's character. He like just shoots him, or whatever. Like that scene, he closes his eyes right when he pulls the trigger, so the blood doesn't get in his eyes, so he doesn't miss the next shot.
Huh.
It's like you don't notice it there, but upon like second watching, like deep diving, it's like, oh shit, that makes so much sense. And it sounds like this is a much more dialed up and important version, but it's the same kind of thing. It's like, you know, having that where it's innocuous and then you can go back and it's like, oh shit, it's all coalescing, it's all coming together. It's like, that's just brilliant storytelling and filmmaking where it doesn't call attention to itself, but you do see it. It's not like you have to do like a, you know, a deep dive or whatever to figure that shit out. I mean, maybe in like the, you know, Quentin Tarantino case you did, but that to have that kind of depth and those dimensions in your storytelling and creation is just like, just fucking genius. Love to see masters at work.
Yeah. Agree. All right, you got anything else to add before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I don't know how I ever kind of didn't wreck the song or it slipped my mind ever, but one of my favorite songs by a great folky band or artist rather, because it is just one person, is Andrew Bird, and I love this song so much. I've heard it so many times that it comes on subtly in the background of one of the episodes of The Bear. The song is called Sisyphus, and it starts off with whistling, which, if you knew me, and as my brother can attest, I love, and I'm quite proficient at whistling.
Weirdly proficient at whistling. It's true.
Yeah. Wish I could do the Family Guy Herbert thing now and do weirdly good at whistling, but I can't do that kind of whistling.
So hard.
It is so hard. But in the background of one of the episodes, it slowly cues in, and I heard it ever so subtly, and I was like, know the song 100, and just whistled all the way through the rest of the episode. So if you like whistling, or are looking from that one amazing song from The Bear, or amongst, I think probably the others, but this one stands out as one of my favorite songs, I highly recommend checking out Sisyphus by Andrew Bird. That our episode, or you got do you have a song to share this week?
No, not this week. I need to go review my musical selections.
All right. Well, let's let the audience take a break between this and the next episode while you go look at your musical selections.
Why, thank you. But that is our episode. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and if you enjoyed it, please feel free to
like,
comment,
share,
and subscribe.
And don't forget, new episodes of Super Pros Bros come out the first and third Saturday of every month. Bye.